Princess Varine stood on the round platform in the center of the great hall. 100 pairs of eyes watched her. The eyes belonged to the High Council of Xyloria. Their blue skin shone in the bright light. Varine tried not to shake. She kept her head high, but inside she felt afraid. "Princess Varine," said Elder Crozak, "we have tested you as our laws require. We find you unworthy." Varine felt the word like a sharp pain. Unworthy. The worst thing a Xylorian could be called. She had spent 20 years preparing to take her place among her people's leaders. Now it was over. "Your tests show you cannot form telepathic bonds," continued Elder Crozak. His voice was cold. "This is a basic skill for all Xylorians of noble birth. Without it, you cannot lead." Varine wanted to argue. She wanted to tell them that she had other skills. She was smart. She worked hard. She cared about her people. But in Xylorian society, none of that mattered without telepathy. "As is our custom with those found unworthy," said Elder Crozak, "you will be sent away. You will serve as a diplomat on Earth. The humans do not use telepathy, so your weakness will not matter there." Varine knew this meant exile. Earth was far away. The Xylorians had only made contact with humans 5 years ago. They thought humans were primitive. Being sent to Earth was the Council's way of getting rid of her. "The Council has spoken," said Crozak. "You leave in 3 days." Varine bowed her head. She could not show anger or sadness. That would only prove she was unworthy. "I accept the Council's decision," she said quietly. Later, in her rooms in the royal palace, Varine let her tears fall. She looked out at the twin moons of Xyloria. She had always loved their purple glow. Now she might never see them again. There was a soft knock at her door. "Enter," she called, quickly wiping her face. Queen Nylara, her mother, came in. The queen was tall and graceful. Her blue skin was darker than Varine's, marked with the royal patterns that showed her high status. "My daughter," she said softly. She came to Varine and took her hands. "They are right to send me away," Varine said. "I am broken. I cannot do what every royal child should do." "You are not broken," said Queen Nylara firmly. "You are different. There is a difference." "Not to the Council," said Varine bitterly. "The Council sees only what they expect to see," said her mother. "They look for one kind of strength. They miss all others." Varine looked up at her mother. "What do you mean?" "I have watched you grow," said Queen Nylara. "You may not have telepathy, but you see things others miss. You understand people in your own way, and you have a strong mind. These are gifts, Varine." "Gifts no one values," said Varine. "Not yet," said her mother. "But the universe is bigger than Xyloria. Maybe on Earth, you will find people who see your true worth." Varine doubted this. "The humans are primitive. They've barely left their own solar system." "They are young as a spacefaring race," agreed the queen. "But they are creative. They adapt. They find new ways to solve problems. Maybe you will learn from them." "I don't want to go," Varine admitted. Queen Nylara touched her daughter's face gently. "I know. But sometimes what seems like an ending is really a beginning. Take this time on Earth to find out who you are without the weight of royal expectations." Over the next 2 days, Varine prepared for her journey. She packed few personal things. She studied files about Earth culture and customs. She learned that she would live in a place called Wyoming, in the United States of America. It was chosen because it was quiet and had few people, so she could adjust slowly. On her last night on Xyloria, Varine couldn't sleep. She walked in the royal gardens. The sweet smell of night flowers filled the air. In the distance she could hear the soft songs of the crystal towers as the wind passed through them. "I will come back," she whispered to her world. "Somehow, someday I will return and show them all what I can be." The next morning, Varine dressed in her formal royal clothes one last time. She wore the silver circlet that marked her as a princess. Even in exile, she was still of royal blood. The council could not take that away. At the spaceport, only her mother came to say goodbye. The royal family was large, with many cousins and relatives, but none of them came. They were afraid of being connected to someone unworthy. "This data, crystal, contains private messages from me," said Queen Nilara, pressing a small object into Varine's hand. "Watch them when you feel alone." "Thank you, Mother," said Varine. She wanted to hug the Queen, but public displays of emotion were not the Xylorian way. Instead, they pressed their foreheads together in the traditional family gesture. "Remember who you are," whispered the Queen, "not what they say you are." The spaceship waited, its silver hull gleaming in the morning sun. It was a small diplomatic vessel, designed for speed. The journey to Earth would take only 2 weeks because of the spacefold drive. Varine walked up the ramp with her head held high. She did not look back until she reached the top. Then she turned and raised her hand, in farewell to her mother and her world. Inside the ship, Captain Zelkar greeted her with stiff formality. He had been chosen to take her to Earth and then return immediately to Xyloria. He too seemed to fear that her unworthiness might somehow rub off on him. "Your quarters are prepared, Princess," he said. "We will depart in 10 minutes. "Thank you, Captain," Varine replied. She followed a crew member to a small but comfortable room. There was a viewing window where she could see the spaceport. As the engines started with a soft hum, Varine looked out at her home planet. The beautiful blue-green world grew smaller as the ship rose. Soon it was just one bright point among many stars. Varine touched the window. "This is not the end," she said to herself. "This is the beginning of my own story." The ship entered the spacefold and Xyloria vanished from view. Ahead lay Earth and a future Varine could not imagine. 2 years passed since Princess Varine arrived on Earth. She lived in a small compound in Wyoming. It had high walls and guards. The Xylorian Council said this was for her protection, but Varine knew better. They wanted to keep her away from humans as much as possible. Her job as a diplomat was mostly boring. She sent reports back to Xyloria about Earth culture and politics. Few people came to see her. Most humans were afraid to meet an alien, even one who looked almost human, except for her blue skin and silver white hair. Varine learned English quickly. She had a translator chip in her ear, but she preferred to speak the human language herself. It helped her feel less alone. Today she had to attend a science conference in the nearby city. The Xylorians had shared some medical technology with Earth, and human doctors wanted to thank them. Varine did not want to go, but it was her duty. "Your Highness, the car is ready," said Loris, her Xylorian assistant. Varine nodded and put on her formal clothes. They were Earth-style, but made with Xylorian fabric that shimmered like water. She had learned that humans stared less if she dressed more like them. The conference center was large and full of people. Varine stood stiffly as the human officials made speeches. She smiled when they looked at her, but inside she felt lonely. These people did not care about her. They only cared about Xylorian technology. After the speeches, there was a dinner. Varine sat at a table with important human scientists. They asked her polite questions about Xyloria, and she gave the answers she had been taught to give. "Is it true that Xylorians can read minds?" asked one woman. "Most Xylorians have telepathic abilities," said Varine carefully. "We can sense each other's feelings and sometimes thoughts, but only with permission." She did not say that she lacked this ability. She did not want to explain why she was unworthy. After dinner, people walked around and talked in small groups. Varine stood alone near a window. She was used to being alone. "Excuse me, Your Highness," said a man's voice. "I'm Dr. Alan Wright. I work at the university here." Varine turned to see a human man with kind brown eyes and light brown hair. He was tall for a human, almost as tall as she was. "Hello, Dr. Wright," she said. "It is nice to meet you. I've been studying the medical data your people shared," he said. "It's fascinating, but I have some questions that weren't covered in the files." Varine was surprised. Most humans just accepted what the Xylorians gave them. "What questions do you have?" "Well, for one thing, the data shows that Xylorian cellular structures respond to quantum changes in a way that human cells don't, said Alan. But there's no explanation of how this works. Vereen blinked. This human understood more than she expected. That is a complex topic, she said. Most Xylorians can sense quantum fields directly. Through telepathy? Asked Alan. Vereen hesitated. Yes, in a way, but it is not something we discuss with outsiders. Alan nodded. I understand, but if you ever want to talk about it, I'd love to learn more. My work focuses on finding ways to help humans and aliens share medical knowledge. For the first time, in a long time, Vereen felt interested in something. This human didn't just want Xylorian technology, he wanted to understand. Perhaps we could meet again, she said. I could explain more about how our bodies work. I'd like that, said Alan, with a smile. Would next week be possible? I could come to your compound. Over the next few months, Alan visited Vereen regularly. They talked about science at first, but soon they talked about many things. Alan told her about growing up on a farm in Iowa. Vereen told him about the crystal forests of Xyloria. One day, Alan brought a special scanner to the compound. I've been developing this to study quantum interactions in living cells, he explained. Would you mind if I scanned you? It's completely safe. Vereen agreed. She lay on a table while Alan moved the scanner over her body. She watched his face as he looked at the results on his computer. This is amazing, he said. Your cellular structure is different from the Xylorian samples I've studied. Vereen felt a cold fear. Different how? Your cells seem to interact with quantum fields in a totally unique way, said Alan. It's not that you lack the ability to sense these fields. It's that you sense them differently. Vereen sat up quickly. What do you mean? Alan showed her the screen. See these patterns? Normal Xylorian cells show this pattern when they detect quantum changes. Your cells show this pattern instead. It's not weaker, it's just different. The council said I was defective, said Vereen quietly. That I could not form telepathic bonds because something was wrong with me. Alan looked at her with surprise. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just wired differently. It's like how some humans have different kinds of intelligence. Some are good at math, others at art. Neither is broken. Tears filled Vereen's eyes. For 20 years, she had believed she was unworthy. Now this human suggested she might just be different. I should do more tests, said Alan. If you're willing. Over the next weeks, Alan came every day. He brought more equipment. He tested Vereen's brain activity and her reactions to different quantum stimuli. I think I understand what's happening, he said finally. Most Xylorians sense only certain quantum patterns, that's their telepathy. But you sense a broader range of patterns. Your brain is processing quantum information in a completely different way. But what does that mean? Asked Vereen. It means you might be able to do things other Xylorians can't, said Alan. You just need to learn how to use this ability. For the first time in her life, Vereen felt hope. She was not broken, she was not unworthy, she was just different. Will you help me? She asked Alan. He took her hand. His skin was warm against her cool blue fingers. Of course I will, he said. Vereen felt something new when Alan held her hand. It was not telepathy, but it was a connection. She realized she had come to care for this human man who saw value in her when her own people did not. Thank you, she said softly. Alan smiled at her. We're just getting started, Princess. I think you might be capable of amazing things. As the sun set outside the compound walls, Vereen felt like her life was truly beginning. With Alan's help, she would discover who she really was and what she could really do. And maybe someday she would return to Xyloria, not as an unworthy exile, but as someone who had found her own kind of glory. Vereen and Alan worked together every day for 3 months. The Xylorian officials who watched over Vereen became worried. They did not like that she spent so much time with a human. But Vereen ignored their concerns. For the first time in her life, she felt hopeful. In Alan's lab at the university, Vereen sat in a special chair. Small sensors were attached to her blue skin. Alan stood nearby, watching a screen full of colored patterns. Try again, Alan said gently. Focus on the red cube. Vereen stared at a small red cube on the table in front of her. She tried to sense the tiny quantum changes happening inside it. At first she felt nothing. Then slowly she began to see something like a faint glow around the cube. I can see it, she whispered. Not with my eyes, but with my mind. It's like a cloud of tiny lights. Alan smiled widely. Your brain activity is changing. You're picking up the quantum field around the object. Vereen concentrated harder. The Yumar cloud of lights in her mind became clearer. She could see patterns in it like a flowing river of energy. Can you try to change the pattern? Alan asked. Just think about making the lights move differently. Vereen focused her thoughts. She imagined the tiny lights moving in a circle. To her surprise, she felt something shift. The lights obeyed her thought. On Alan's screen, numbers changed rapidly. He looked amazed. The quantum field is responding to you. This is incredible. Day after day, they practiced. Vereen learned to see the quantum fields around all objects. She learned to change these fields with her thoughts. It was tiring work, but she grew stronger. One evening, as they finished work, Alan looked troubled. What's wrong? Vereen asked. I received a message from the Xylorian embassy, Alan said. They want me to stop these experiments. They say I'm interfering with your diplomatic duties. Vereen felt angry. They just want to keep me isolated and useless. There's more, Alan said. I've been doing research on Xylorian biology. The official records say that your kind of difference happens once every few hundred years, but each time the person disappears from public life. You think there were others like me? Vereen asked. I think your people might be afraid of your abilities, Alan said. The kind of quantum manipulation you're learning to do could be very powerful. Vereen thought about this. My mother once told me that what others call defects are sometimes gifts not yet understood. A week later, Vereen woke up feeling very sick. Her skin turned a pale gray color. She could barely stand. Alan came to the compound when she called him. This isn't a normal illness, he said after examining her. Your quantum patterns are destabilizing. It's like your body is fighting against your new abilities. Am I dying? Vereen asked weakly. Not if I can help it, Alan said firmly. He brought equipment from his lab to the compound. For days, he rarely left her side. He gave her treatments that helped stabilize her condition. During this time, Loris, Vereen's assistant, sent urgent messages to Xyloria. The council replied that Vereen should return home immediately for proper care. They don't want to help me, Vereen told Alan when she was strong enough to talk. They want to lock me away. I won't let that happen, Alan promised. As Vereen slowly recovered, she noticed something strange. Her quantum perception had become stronger after her illness. She could now see the fields without trying, and when she focused, she could make larger changes to them. One evening, as Alan checked her vital signs, Vereen realized something important. Whenever he was near, she felt stronger. There was a connection between them, not like Xylorian telepathy, but something just as real. Alan, she said softly, I think I love you. He looked surprised, then smiled. I love you too, Vereen. I have, for months now. My people would say such feelings for a human are another sign of my unworthiness, she said. Then they're wrong about that too, Alan replied. 3 days later, a Xylorian ship arrived unexpectedly. Captain Zelkar came to the compound with 4 guards. Princess Vereen, he said formally, the High Council has ordered your immediate return to Xyloria. The human doctor has violated our protocols and endangered your health. That's not true, Vereen said. Alan saved my life when your doctors did nothing. The Council's decision is final, said Zelkar. We leave tomorrow. The human will not be allowed to contact you again. After Zelkar left, Vereen and Alan sat together in her room. I won't go back, she said. They'll just treat me as a shameful secret. Then we need to leave, Alan said. Tonight. Where would we go? Vereen asked. I have a cabin in the mountains of Canada, Alan said. It's remote. We could go there while we figure out what to do next. That night, while the Xylorian guards were changing shifts, Vereen and Alan slipped out of the compound. They drove Alan's car for hours, heading north. "There's something I didn't tell you," Alan said as they crossed the border into Canada. "I've been working on a theory about your abilities. I think you might be able to do more than just see and change small quantum patterns." "What do you mean?" Vereen asked. "Everything in the universe is made of the same quantum particles," Alan explained. "If you can control them in a small object, you might eventually learn to affect much larger systems." Vereen thought about this. "Like what?" "Like healing serious injuries instantly," Alan said. "Or maybe even changing the probability of events." "That sounds impossible," Vereen said. "So does a blue alien princess falling in love with a human scientist," Alan said with a smile. "Yet here we are." As they drove through the night, Vereen looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there was Xyloria, the world that had rejected her. But here next to her was someone who saw her true value. "Alan," she said suddenly, "let's get married." He looked surprised, then smiled. "Are you sure?" "Yes," she said. "I want to build a new life, with you." A week later, in a small ceremony, at the cabin with only the mountains and trees as witnesses, Vereen and Alan became husband and wife. They combined human and Xylorian traditions, speaking vows in both languages. That night, as they sat on the porch of the cabin, Vereen felt truly happy for the first time in her life. She was no longer a princess in exile. She was simply Vereen, a person discovering her true powers with someone who loved her by her side. "What do we do now?" she asked. "We keep working," Alan said. "We find out what you're really capable of, and then when you're ready we show the Xylorians exactly how wrong they were about you." Vereen smiled. The future was uncertain, but for once that felt exciting rather than frightening. 6 months passed in the mountain cabin. Vereen and Alan worked every day on developing her abilities. The cabin was simple but had a large room that Alan turned into a lab. He brought equipment from the university when they left Wyoming. Vereen got stronger each week. She could now see quantum fields around everything. She could also change these fields with just a thought. Small objects were easy to affect. She could make a pen roll across a table or make a light bulb glow without electricity. "You're making amazing progress," Alan told her one morning. They sat on the cabin porch with cups of coffee. Vereen had grown to like the bitter earth drink. "But I want to do more," she said. "If I'm going to face the council someday, I need to show them something they can't ignore." Alan nodded. "I've been thinking about that. The Xylorian ships use quantum technology for their engines, right?" "Yes," said Vereen. "The spacefold drives work by changing quantum states between 2 points in space. That's how we travel such great distances so quickly." "Could you affect something that large with your abilities?" Alan asked. Vereen wasn't sure. "Maybe, but I would need to practice with bigger things first." That day they drove to a small lake near the cabin. No one else was around. The water was calm and clear. "Try to make a wave," Alan suggested. "Not with your hands, with your mind." Vereen looked at the still water. She focused on the quantum particles that made up the surface. At first, nothing happened. She concentrated harder, visualizing the tiny particles moving up and down together. Slowly, a small ripple appeared in the center of the lake. It grew larger as Vereen focused her thoughts. Soon, a wave about 1 foot high moved across the water. "That's it," Alan said excitedly. "You're affecting millions of particles at once." Vereen kept practicing with larger and larger objects. She made snow slide off tree branches. She caused small rock slides on distant hills. Each time it became easier. One night, as they ate dinner, Alan looked serious. "I checked the secure channel today. The Xylorians are still looking for us." Vereen put down her fork. "Have they found anything?" "Not yet," said Alan. "But they've expanded their search to Canada. It's only a matter of time before they check this area." "Then we need to make a decision," said Vereen. "Keep hiding or face them." Alan reached across the table and took her hand. "Whatever you decide, I'm with you." Vereen thought for a moment. I'm tired of running. I want to show them what I can do. I want to change how they think about people like me. Then we need a plan, said Alan, and some help. The next day, Alan called his friend Greg, who worked at the space tracking station in northern Canada. Greg was one of the few humans who knew about Vereen. A Xylorian diplomatic ship is scheduled to land in Ottawa next week, Greg told them over the phone. They're meeting with the Earth government about the new trade agreement. That's our chance, said Vereen after Alan hung up. We can meet them on neutral ground. For the next week, Vereen practiced harder than ever. She could now affect large objects from a distance. She could even change the weather in small ways, making clouds form or disappear. When the day came, they drove to Ottawa. They checked into a small hotel near the government buildings where the Xylorian ship would land. Are you nervous? Alan asked as they prepared for bed. Yes, admitted Vereen, but also ready. In the middle of the night, Vereen woke suddenly. She felt a strange pulling sensation in her mind. She sat up in bed. What's wrong? Alan asked, waking up too. Something's happening, Vereen said. I can feel it. Something big. She turned on the TV in their room. A late news report showed a bright light in the sky over Ottawa. The reporter sounded worried. Scientists are concerned about an unexpected solar flare that is causing disruptions to satellite communications, the reporter said. The aurora borealis is visible much further south than normal. Vereen knew this was no solar flare. It's a dimensional rift, she said. The quantum barrier between our dimension and another is weakening. Is that dangerous? Alan asked. Very, said Vereen. If it gets larger, it could affect Earth's gravity, its magnetic field, even time itself. Can the Xylorians fix it? They'll try, said Vereen. They have technology for small rifts, but I've never felt one this strong before. They dressed quickly and drove toward the government complex where the Xylorian ship had landed. Security was tight, but Alan showed his scientific credentials, saying they had information about the strange phenomenon. In the main control room, several Xylorian officials stood around equipment they had brought from their ship. Vereen recognized Elder Krozak, who had judged her unworthy. He looked much older now. The rift is expanding, said a Xylorian scientist. Our containment field isn't working. Because you're making it worse, Vereen said loudly as she walked in. Everyone turned to look at her. Elder Krozak's eyes widened. Princess Vereen, he said, you are supposed to be on Xyloria. I was sent away, remember? Vereen said coldly. But right now that doesn't matter. Your containment field is wrong. It's amplifying the rift, not closing it. How would you know? This, asked the scientist. Because I can see the quantum fields, Vereen said. All of them, not just the ones Xylorian telepathy can detect. Elder Krozak looked doubtful. This is a complex situation requiring trained experts. Your presence here is... He was interrupted by an alarm from the Xylorian equipment. The screen showed the rift growing larger. Let me help, Vereen said urgently, before it's too late. We cannot allow an unworthy, Krozak began. She is not unworthy, Alan interrupted angrily. She's different. And right now that difference might save us all. The scientist looked at his readings again. Elder, the situation is getting worse. Perhaps we should... Krozak hesitated, then nodded stiffly. Very well. What do you suggest, Princess? Vereen stepped forward. Turn off your containment field first. It's making the wrong pattern. The scientist did as she asked. The readings showed the rift still expanding, but more slowly. Now I need to see it directly, Vereen said. They moved to a balcony outside the building. In the night sky, a shimmering tear was visible, like a crack in reality itself. Colors that shouldn't exist flowed from it. Vereen took a deep breath and opened her mind fully to the quantum fields around her. The rift appeared to her as a complex pattern, beautiful but dangerous. I can see it, she whispered to Alan, who stood beside her. I think I can fix it. She reached out with her mind, sensing the edges of the rift. Then, carefully, she began to reshape the quantum fields around it. bringing order to the chaos. Everyone watched as the shimmering light in the sky began to change. The impossible colors faded. The tear slowly began to close. Varine's body shook with effort, but she didn't stop. Alan held her shoulders, supporting her. Almost there, she gasped. With a final push of her will, Varine sealed the rift completely. The night sky returned to normal, stars shining peacefully above. Then she collapsed into Alan's arms, exhausted but triumphant. Varine woke up in a room with white walls. For a moment she feared the Xylorians had taken her back to their ship. Then she saw Alan sleeping in a chair beside her bed. She was in a human hospital. "Alan," she said softly. He woke up right away. "Varine, how do you feel?" "Tired," she said. "But okay. What happened after I closed the rift?" "You passed out," Alan said. "The Xylorians wanted to take you to their ship, but I refused. I brought you here instead. The doctors say you're just exhausted." Varine nodded. "Using that much power drained me. But I did it, Alan. I closed a dimensional rift that their best scientists couldn't fix." "Everyone saw it," Alan said with a smile. "Even Elder Krozak couldn't deny what you did." There was a knock at the door. A human nurse looked in. "Princess, the Xylorian officials are here again. They insist on seeing you." Varine took a deep breath. "Let them in." Elder Krozak entered with two other Xylorians. One was the scientist, from the night before. The other was a surprise. Queen Nilara, Varine's mother. "Mother?" Varine tried to sit up in bed. Queen Nilara rushed to her daughter's side. "My child," she said, touching Varine's face gently. "When I heard what happened, I came right away. The Queen insisted on joining our diplomatic mission," Elder Krozak explained stiffly. "What you did was remarkable," said the scientist. "Our instruments recorded the entire event. You manipulated quantum fields in a way we've never seen before." Elder Krozak looked uncomfortable. "The Council will want a full report on your abilities. So I'm interesting to the Council now?" Varine asked coldly. "When they thought I was defective, they sent me away." "There has been a misunderstanding," Krozak said. "The Council's decision was based on incomplete information. It was based on prejudice," Alan said firmly. "You called her unworthy because she was different. You never tried to understand her gifts." Queen Nilara looked at Elder Krozak with hard eyes. "My daughter saved many lives last night. Perhaps the Council should reconsider what makes someone worthy." Krozak's face showed no emotion, but his voice was less sure. "The Council would like Princess Varine to return to Xyloria for further study of her abilities." "So I can be a test subject?" Varine shook her head. "No, I have a life here now, and a husband." Krozak looked shocked. "You married a human? This is against all tradition." "Traditions change," said Queen Nilara. She looked at Alan with kind eyes. "This human has seen value in my daughter when her own people did not. He has helped her discover her true gifts." The scientist stepped forward. "Princess, I understand your anger, but there is something you should know. The rift you closed was not a random event. It was the first sign of what we call the Nexus Crisis." "What is that?" Alan asked. "A series of dimensional rifts that our scientists predicted would begin this year," the scientist explained. "The models show they will get stronger and more frequent. The one you closed was just the beginning." Varine looked concerned. "How bad will it get?" "Without intervention, the rifts could tear apart the fabric of space in both Earth and Xylorian regions," the scientist said. "Our technology cannot stop them, but you might be able to." Varine was quiet for a moment. She looked at Alan, who nodded slightly, then at her mother. "I will help," she said finally, "but on my terms. I will not return to Xyloria as an exile or a test subject. I return as who I am, Princess Varine, with my human husband at my side." Elder Krozak started to object, but Queen Nilara raised her hand. "As Queen, I accept these terms. The Council will be informed of my decision." 3 weeks later, a Xylorian royal ship landed on Earth. Vereen and Alan stood ready to board. Alan had packed light, bringing only his most important research and personal items. He looked nervous but excited. "Are you ready to see my world?" Vereen asked him. "As ready as I'll ever be," he said with a smile. The journey to Xyloria took 2 weeks. During that time, Vereen worked with the ship's scientists, showing them what she could do. They were amazed by her abilities. When they reached Xyloria, a large crowd waited at the spaceport. News of the princess who closed the dimensional rift had spread quickly. People wanted to see her and the human she had married. The royal palace looked just as Vereen remembered. But this time she walked in with her head held high, Alan beside her. The High Council waited in the Great Hall. "Princess Vereen has returned," announced a royal guard. Elder Krozak stood. "The council acknowledges Princess Vereen and her companion." "My husband," Vereen corrected firmly. "Dr. Alan Wright of Earth, who helped me discover my true abilities when my own people could not." Queen Nylera, seated on her throne, smiled proudly. "The council will now hear the princess's report on the dimensional rift and her recommendations for the Nexus crisis." For the next hour, Vereen explained what she had learned about her quantum abilities. She showed the council how she could sense and manipulate fields that normal Xylorian telepathy couldn't detect. "There may be others like me," she said. "People you called unworthy because they were different. They should be found and trained, not exiled." Some council members looked uncomfortable, but others nodded in agreement. "And what of the Nexus crisis?" asked a council member. "Can you help us?" "I believe so," said Vereen. "But I will need help. We should create a team of scientists, both Xylorian and human. My husband will lead the human scientists." After much discussion, the council agreed to Vereen's plan. They also agreed to search for other Xylorians with unusual abilities like hers. "There is one more thing," said Queen Nilara when the council meeting ended. "The ancient laws of worthiness must be changed. Difference is not defect. My daughter has proven this." In the months that followed, Vereen led the effort against the Nexus crisis. With each rift she closed, her abilities grew stronger. Alan worked with Xylorian scientists to create new technology based on Vereen's unique perception. They found others like Vereen, people who had been hidden away or sent to distant posts because they were different. Under Vereen's guidance, they learned to use their special gifts. One evening, Vereen and Alan stood on a balcony of the royal palace looking at the twin moons of Xyloria. "Are you happy here?" Vereen asked him. "I'm happy with you," Alan said. "On any world." Vereen smiled. "When I was sent to Earth, I thought my life was over. But it was just beginning. From unworthy princess to the savior of 2 worlds," Alan said. "Not bad. And it all happened because I married a human who saw me clearly," Vereen said, taking his hand. Together, they looked up at the stars, no longer divided by difference, but united by love and purpose.